Welcome. Nice to see you again, Justin.
Yes. Yeah, it's probably been a while, I think, actually,
Yes, it has
over a
been a
month.
while between book drinks. I
And
slowed the pace because not only can I not read as fast, I think lots of people can't read as fast as a book a month, especially this year. And you have appropriately been out touring out in
yeah,
Australia.
I've actually been
Well, so have
traveling,
I
which I
actually, but
feel
you've
very,
been even doing, been doing a bigger, better
yes,
job of it. So
I actually feel very lucky. I'm kind of very conscious that I know people from around the world when I'm posting stuff, but they all seem to want to know and see things. And I think, in Australia now, we're getting flights starting up again and everything like that. So I think,
yeah,
fingers
crazy.
crossed, we'll be doing a bit more travel around Australia at least.
Yeah, yeah. So, but you have been really exploring some of the real down under kind of stuff. So,
Well,
which is appropriate. So here we are. I bet you have a
yeah,
different version to me,
I
as
do, I
is.
do, which is always good because then people can
Oh,
see.
that's a good one. Yes, yes. This is the
Yeah,
newer one, and
and then of
there
course
are
there's a
some
different title,
versions out there. Yeah, called just called In a Sunburned Country.
Unburned Country.
I think it's
Yeah,
just In a Sunburned Country. So, and if you have that, I know some people were confused. That is the same book. It has just
yeah,
got titled differently around the world. So, but
yeah,
so this is a 20-year-old book now, which seems to make me feel a little bit old, but that's okay, because it has lasted quite well considering all of the things that have changed in the world since then. It's still a rollicking good read, I would say. What did you think, Justin? What's your overall thoughts?
yeah. I actually there were bits in it I remembered that I laughed about the first time, and so I laughed about them again the second time. And there's a lot of history in there that a lot of Australians wouldn't remember about their own country, and there's even stuff that's like happened a few, an hour's drive from where I live or 2 hours drive from where I live, and it's like, oh, completely forgot about that. And I think when I read the book, I thought, oh, I should go out there and check out that museum, and I still haven't 20 years later. So
Well, there's another reminder for you. But it's true, isn't
yeah,
it? I am impressed. Like he's obviously a good researcher, and he really, digs deep into things that interest him and chats to people. And some of the sections on history and stuff
yeah,
are really, interesting and stuff that I should know about. And obviously, I read this book, a couple of decades ago and read it then, and still didn't retain. So, yeah, it was a very interesting start. Now, I can't actually see yet. Where are we on? Oh, there we are. Okay, good. So, hello to anyone who is listening live. I know that Anne in the US was going to try and join us because I was really curious to hear what other non Aussies have been thinking about reading this book. So, let's start off, Justin, with um, the thoughts about how outsiders see Australia. So, you and I are both Australian, and obviously we have our particular views about Australia, and it's interesting to see what other people think about it. So, do you want to kick off with some of the dangers of Australia?
oh, the dangers. Yeah, I think, and I get asked when I'm traveling. This is one of the things. If it's not kangaroo, which is the first thing people always ask me about when they say, "Oh, you're from Australia, kangaroos." Yes. If it's not kangaroos, then kangaroos themselves are also dangerous, but we
Oh yeah,
won't go into that.
no, no,
Um,
people don't expect
but
that part.
no, no, and people are always like thinking, "Oh, but when you then say that there's 25 million people living there, and we're not dying on a regular basis from these things, so there's a lot
Not
of
a regular
space, and we
basis at
share it."
all.
No, no, we share it, and I think that the one I liked there was a bit right at the beginning of the book, which I'll quote because I just liked the description, and it was, if you are not stung or pronged to death in some unexpected manner, you may be fatally chomped by sharks or crocodiles, or carried helplessly out to sea by an irresistible current, or left to stagger to an unhappy death in the baking outback. It's a tough place, and it, I don't know. I don't know what it says about Australians if we're living here, but yeah, I think we all know. I think we all are aware of the dangers in Australia, and it's common sense. Whereas, yeah, maybe other people would go, "Geez, you guys are crazy," but
Yeah, yeah.
not
And the fact is
nowhere
that
near
most
that.
of us live in urban areas, like 90 odd percent of us live in
Yeah,
urban areas, where there's less of these nasty. Well, there's still a fair few of the nasties around, but I guess
mm.
we've built them out to some extent. And
Yeah,
a tourist is more likely to be out in the outback, perhaps, statistically, and they might see more of these nasties. But yeah, I remember when I lived in Germany, every week I would see a documentary on German TV about some aspect of Australia's dangerous animals. It's really an international obsession, I think.
yeah,
But down here we
and I
really
think
don't have that much to do with them.
no, and I think people think we're very casual about these things, and it's like, oh, it'll be all right. It's not a problem, And I think it's just more like I think the most dangerous thing people come across maybe are snakes and spiders, and I think spiders, a lot of people like to squish them, and uh, and there's only really one or two that are remotely dangerous in Australia in terms of spiders. But yeah, it's I think I saw one snake in 12 days in the outback, so
Oh, is that all? Yeah.
and about half
Yeah.
a dozen lizards. So I had a better chance of seeing lizards, but
And they're not going to hurt you.
no, no,
No. Yeah, I mean
small
it's the
ones.
same. So, yeah. I The one thing in the book when he went to the Great Barrier Reef and he explained the story of those American snorkelers,
Oh yeah,
which I'd forgotten
yeah,
about that story. Um
yeah,
who didn't come back, but there was a lot of suggestion that there was like a suicide pact involved or whatever. But it did make me think when you go on those trips, sometimes like Australians generally can swim well. We're brought up, usually have swimming lessons all through school. Most of us will, be jumping in a pool, a lot of times in summer or whatever. And generally we can swim well. But a lot of people in other countries, don't have that experience. They can maybe ski but can't swim or whatever. And that
yeah,
often has bothered me when I've been on those kind of snorkeling trips that they're like, okay, off you go. And they've never really checked, like, can these people actually swim? And like Bill Bryson's experience of when he hopped in the water and he suddenly realized like
yeah.
it was really, really, really deep and he panicked.
Mm.
And I thought, yeah, that probably happens a lot. And that kind of did make me think that's a lot more dangerous than our dangerous animals.
And I think you'll find Australians, if you put them in an unfamiliar environment, like at altitude or in the Alps in Europe or the mountains in Andes or Himalayas or something like that, for example, that we don't have a lot of, that you may find Australians doing silly things there or not knowing the common sense involved there. So
That would be me.
um,
Totally. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think I've had to learn stuff over the years about altitudes and stuff because I've been out there, but it didn't come naturally to me. I wasn't taught that as a kid. Whereas water safety
Yeah.
and safety with the variety of wildlife we
Yeah.
have is just something you
Stomping
grow
when
up
you
with.
walk
And
through the bush so that the snakes know you're
yeah,
coming. That kind of stuff
yeah,
is second nature.
yeah,
So yes. So so that was an interesting part. There was a lot of crocodiles and sharks in this book. I think almost
yeah.
more than I have ever had anything to do with in my life. So it was over representative. Now, now, if the viewers don't realize, Justin is sitting in Canberra, Australia's national capital,
Yes.
a lovely place. And I'm over here in Western Australia, also a lovely place. But unfortunately for Justin, in the book, Canberra doesn't come up as the winner compared to Western Australia. So, Justin, I need to ask you, because I haven't been to Canberra since about this time this book was published, in fact. So it's really up to you to defend
Yes.
your city. Tell us what Bill Bryson said and what's wrong with it.
um, and to be quite honest, I think there was 20, 30 years ago, it was probably really was just a capital city that was pretty bland and boring and full of public servants. And people need to, if they're not aware, Canberra was, and this is covered in the book, it was built purposely to be the capital. And there's a few places in the world that have done this. I think Indonesia are now looking at building a brand new capital, and they've actually
Oh, I didn't
decided
know
to look
that.
at Canberra. Yeah,
Ha,
because
cool.
Jakarta's sinking.
Right,
Jakarta's apparently sinking.
problematic.
So one of the things they've done is, Canberra was a purposely built capital. What have they done right? What have they done wrong? So, and Brazil's another one that I'm aware of as well.
Yes, I was thinking of Brasilia.
I think Myanmar. Anyway, I
Oh,
won't get sidetracked. But it's taken a while, I think, for it to build an identity, and I think now we're getting. So back when Bill Bryson was around, I think we were very much this place where if you wanted to get something to eat on a Monday or Tuesday night, half the restaurants would be closed, and there was only a handful, and they still are because of the way the city's built. It's not. like you can walk a few blocks and you will eventually come to some shops, and it's a very the whole city is like suburbs, whereas and then there's a very small actual city area, and so um, it's growing, and I think now like it gets in those tourism lists, like it was on Lonely Planet's lists a few years ago as coming, place to come from. But I did want to point out that the Pizza Hut on Lonsdale Street that does the all you can eat is no longer there.
Oh no.
But it's
Okay, good to know.
yes. So he mentions the kids mention that, and I think that's where Canberrans used to go to. Um, I mean, I remember when there was like 2 McDonald's in the whole town, and now I think there's probably 15 or something ridiculous.
Right. Yeah.
And that neighborhood used to be car yards, the Pizza Hut restaurant, car washes. It wasn't really it was a bit of a little semi-commercial industrial area. It's now become like the hip place to live in Canberra, and it's full of like, there's a delicious Afghan restaurant and all sorts of stuff there now.
Cool.
So it's like one of those places they say, oh, if you want to go for food, you go to this neighborhood or that neighborhood. So yeah, I would be really interested. I'd love him to come back and then make another assessment, because I think he would find and he wasn't totally
No. So maybe his assessment was semi-fair last time, but it's changed a lot. Yeah.
But I think Canberrans, we all have as much pride in our city as many other people, and there's a lot going for it. So I'd love to see what he thought about it now compared to then, because I think a lot of people go, "Wow, it's all changed." So
yeah. I mean, I'm very keen. I've always liked Canberra, to be fair, because I've always liked that there's lots of different museums and different. I just love. I don't know. I just have always really liked it, but I need to see the new version.
And this, you're probably not really aware of this, Amanda, because you're on the other side of the country, and I don't know that your people in WA would do this, but on the East Coast, a lot of people's experience at Canberra is they come to Canberra on a school trip, and for the week, and so there's been a lot of talk about the tourism education sector has been suffering because we haven't had the kids coming on their annual school trips to come and visit Parliament House and the War Memorial and the museums, and so that seems to be a rite of passage that school students do when
they go to visit the country's capital. That makes sense. Yeah, it's not very common for me. There are certain school trips that do head to Canberra, but it's certainly like maybe 10% of the year group or something would go on this special trip. It's not it's a bit far. So
a bit far.
Speaking of a bit far, let me segue into Bill Bryson's description of my home state and home city.
Yes.
Fortunately, he loved it, so I'm very pleased about that. But similarly, in the last 20 years, it has changed massively. So it would be also interesting to see his modern day view. But I wrote down a quote: "Why 1.3 million members of a free society would choose to live in such a lonely outpost is a question always worth considering." And I mean, that sums up Perth very well. It's a very isolated city. It's very far from everywhere. But he does go on to give quite a few reasons why we might choose to live here. A big one being climate, and that's true. Our climate is pretty awesome. We don't have winter really. We just think we do, but the temperature is never below freezing. And he talked a lot about the Great Southern area. In fact, he talked about the area in the southwest and the south of Western Australia and complained that it didn't have a name, which I think at the time was true. Like, we didn't have a regional kind of something we described it as, and now we do, and it's called the Great Southern, which is now like bandied about, by tourist boards and stuff. But I was like, hey, Bill, you were right, but now we've got one, so come back and explore it. But he really loved parts of it. He talked about the treetop walk, which is one of my favourite spots down near Walpole, where you can walk up high with the trees, in the tops of the trees. He talked about stromatolites, which, I have just been to see some stromatolites in Cervantes, and he described them way better than I could. So that was good. And something very special happened to him, which has not happened to me, and I'm very jealous. He saw an echidna just wandering around in Kings Park. So for anyone who doesn't know an echidna, that's kind of the Australian version of a hedgehog or porcupine. Sorry?
I mean, Kings Park, I've been to Kings Park, and it's lovely, but never came across to me as being a place where there would be much in the way of wildlife. So I
Well, there is
was
because there are swathes of just like untouched bush
okay.
as part of it as well. So it's
Mm.
actually really huge. It's like one of maybe the or one of the largest parks that are in a capital city. It's always described as being, I can't remember, X times larger than Central Park in New
Yeah,
York and stuff like that. And so a lot
yeah,
of it is bush. So I believe that there could be echidnas there, but I have
yeah.
certainly never seen. I've never seen an echidna in the wild, full stop,
Oh,
and I would love to.
uh,
So
I
um,
don't want to, I don't want to upset you, but if people come to Canberra, we've got a fenced off, predator proof nature area now, and
ooh.
there's echidnas and there's things called bettongs, which are very small marsupials, spotted quolls. But the echidnas during spring, you can see the mating train, as they call it, and the female walks around, and all the males follow them. So you get like a string of 4 or 5 echidnas walking
Oh,
around. So you still have to be a little bit patient. You're not going to just walk in and there it is. But I've seen
I'll
a
be
few
patient.
echidnas there. So
Oh,
yeah,
now I have
yeah.
an
So
extra reason to come to
spring and end,
Canberra. I
spring and
already had
end.
enough, but oh, that's so
Or for anyone else
beautiful.
wanting to, for anyone else when we're allowed to travel, spring in Canberra is the place to be.
Yeah, you have Floriade and stuff in spring, right?
Yes, that
So
too.
it's the
Yes.
perfect time to be in Canberra. Oh, that sounds awesome. Echidnas, I don't know. I just have a thing about echidnas and wombats. They're my spirit animals here in Australia, I think. So we saw emus last trip, and I've seen emus with like the in the far north with the dad and the baby emus following because the dads are the caretakers of the baby emus, and I think that's just adorable. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, see, everyone gets excited about Australian animals from abroad, but actually so do we, because a lot of them we don't see
Yeah.
that often. I mean, kangaroos, yes, there's plenty of them around,
Yeah.
but
I think if you live in the right parts of Australia, you'll see kangaroos fairly regularly. I mean, it's certainly where I live. Yeah, it's not a hard. If I ever need to take visitors to see a kangaroo, I usually can find them within an hour or so. So it's not too
yeah, there's
bad.
some within about 5 minutes from me at a
Yeah.
cemetery. It's a common spot to go and see them. When I was a kid,
Yeah.
they probably still do live at a golf course near where I lived, and they would sometimes leap out, and you'd see them leaping down the main road near us. So yeah, which I mean,
Yeah.
which was still kind of a thrill and also a little bit dangerous because it was complete suburbia. But yeah, so I just want to shout out hello to Anne and Ina because Anne is joining us from. Actually, Anne, tell us where you are exactly because I can't remember. And Ina is joining us from Norway. I know because I spoke to her for our listener interviews. So it's exciting to have people
Yes.
from all over the place
From
watching.
all over the
So
world.
and
And
do
tell
type
us
in
what
any
you really
thoughts you
think about
have.
Australia.
Yeah, yeah. What are your thoughts on Australia? Even if you haven't finished Bill's book yet, what did you think? Now, Justin, what else have we got to chat about? I've got so many notes
Oh,
here. There's
yeah,
so many things to say. Oh, the general thoughts about the Indigenous people stuff. That's a terrible way to describe it, but
yeah.
give us your thoughts.
I, 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 I do. I find all the history. So the history in the book, a lot of it is not necessarily that well known, even in Australia,
Mm,
especially the Indigenous history, because the schools for a long, long time, certainly when I went to school and you'd have gone to school,
same.
focused on the European part. Now, maybe WA had a bit of a slant because you had a lot more of the Portuguese and the Dutch exploring your coastline, but in
Oh, I
the
would like
east
to
coast
say
of
that's true,
Australia,
but no, really, all we learnt
no.
in school was World War Two.
Yeah, so and I learned about Cook,
Yeah,
discovering Australia, and I learned about uh, Captain Phillip, you know, landing, and it wasn't until later in life that I learned about the stuff to do with the Indigenous Australians, or even the fact that other nationalities. So it's not even like the history is not even just kind of wash out all the bad stuff to do with the history of settlers and Indigenous Australians. They just ignore all the other countries as well that ever had anything to do with Australia. So,
yeah.
um, and I kind of learnt over the years how, like, basically we wiped out all the Indigenous people of Tasmania, for example.
Mm,
Uh, I've heard about various things, and I think hopefully things are on the improve. We're certainly, I think, since we had a famous court case in Australia where we recognise Indigenous land rights and stuff like that. So now, certainly quite often you'll see, if you ever watch a sporting event in Australia, they'll recognise they'll do a welcome to country, which is recognising the Indigenous landowners and things like that. But yeah, I mean, I'm not ever going to deny any of this stuff ever happened because it did. And I think all countries that were colonised kind of have had issues about this. And but it's interesting because someone doing some thorough research is going to find all this stuff out fairly easily. It's just if you're taught that and you live in the country, it often can get washed over. And I'm sure that's not the case now, but yeah, in the 80s and 90s when I went to school, that it was.
Absolutely. I mean, it's definitely changed a lot. Although, actually, I really did mean to ask my son about some of the specific things from the book. But for example, now there's welcome to country at every school event.
Yeah.
The buildings in the school are named after the Aboriginal seasons. You know, there's a lot more. There's a lot more recognition. But yeah, but exactly more details about the history and I'd be interesting to check with him, and certainly as he gets through high school, I hope to see that. Like I studied history all the way through to year 12, and there was a massive emphasis on European history. I think
Yeah.
in year 11 and 12, I don't think we studied any aspect of Australian history once, if I remember rightly. We talked about Chinese history and a lot about European history, and that's, you know, it's all very useful and interesting, but probably there should
Yeah.
be a little bit more Australian in the
I
curriculum.
mean,
So
even if I look around the city I live in, there's a lot of things named after Indigenous things, no words, but even then, we should be getting taught about what they all mean
oh
and things like
yeah,
that. So,
yeah,
um,
exactly.
and so yeah, so a lot of parts of Canberra have there's Indigenous names for some suburbs and streets and areas, and you know our national park has an Indigenous name. So, but there's a lack of knowledge on where those names came from and what they're about and that as
Mm,
well. So
yeah. Hey, Anne's just asked a very useful or interesting question. And hi, Anne. She's in Phoenix, Arizona.
yeah,
What is life like for the Indigenous people today? Big
I'm not
question.
going to say it. Yeah, I think it depends on where they grow up. Um,
On average, not great,
there's
and like
no.
statistically, shorter lifespans, a lot more issues on average. So that's the bad side, I guess.
I think part of the problem in Australia is that it is still a small percentage of the population, so it seems to be very easy to just kind of overlook. And
Yeah.
but a lot of legal cases have gone in favour of the Indigenous people to help them out, which has been great. And yeah, I think it's
There's a lot of
yeah
work to be
definitely
done.
yeah. I'm not going to be one of those people that denies that there's not a huge difference because there is, and I think even in the book, Bill talks about something that's known as a stolen generation, where
Yeah.
people thought they were doing the right thing. They thought, oh, the best way to get these people out of poverty is to educate them, take them from their families, and give them a proper schooling. But of course,
Mm.
that's not, as
In
we've since
retrospect, it seems
realised,
very
it's
clear that was a stupid
yeah,
idea, but
yeah,
yeah.
and so that was a big fuss. But with the government made an apology over that and realised it was the wrong thing to do. But yeah, so it's I don't think Australia's unlike any other countries grappling with these kind of issues. I think some might be doing it better, some might be doing it worse. Uh,
On average, we're
you
doing
can
it pretty badly, but we're improving, I guess. I mean, I
yeah, I think
often,
that's
when
probably
you
a good
see,
way.
when you look at New Zealand and see how integrated the Maori culture is there compared to here, like it just seems
Yeah,
like they took some better turns, and we took some wrong turns, and now we've got a bit of catching up to do.
yeah, and it's not hard to see the disadvantages of the Indigenous people if you go to where there's a larger population. Certainly, in a couple of towns I visited on my recent trip, where there was a larger Indigenous population, you could see that the town appeared to be more run down. So it was like, is there just not government money going into this town because it's
Mm,
or what's going on here? And you see a lot of it in the Northern Territory, especially in the towns there. So
yeah.
um, and people have their opinions on it, but yeah, it is different and it's not great. So
Yep, yep. And certainly people from our generation and older need to know more because we
Yeah,
weren't taught much. And there's so the chapters in the book about that. And Anne, I think if I remember rightly, you're about 2/3 through, and that's about the section
yeah.
where I started marking it. And there was a lot of really interesting background of our Indigenous history. So you might be about to get to that. It's well worth a read. It was
I
really
was going to
interesting.
say, and not that I want to sidetrack anyone, but there is a really, really good book that was released a year or so ago, and I've got it somewhere sitting in my pile. I think Dark Emu, I think might be the title of the book,
Yes, Bruce
and it
Pascoe.
goes into Indigenous history in Australia, and it also shows that they were always treated as being very primitive, but there are signs of Indigenous people knowing how to farm uh, animals of certain animals, like they were farming eels on a river to eat and things like that. So I haven't read the book, completed reading the book yet, but if anyone's really interested in it, and they,
Mm,
Dark Emu by Bruce Pascoe is a good book to try and pick up,
yep, yep,
perhaps,
yep. I
especially
think
if you're
that's a good.
overseas and you want to read about it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Also for us here in
Or
Australia
anyone,
because we're
yes, yes,
relatively ignorant. I mean, on
yes,
the whole, me too.
yeah,
It's definitely include myself in that.
yeah,
Okay, so let's move on to something more fun. I wanted to pick out some of the funniest parts. Do you have some? Oh, actually, can I start? Because have I
yes, you
found
can.
it? And then I will, if you've got some of your favourite funny parts, because there's a lot of moments in the book where I literally did laugh out
Yeah,
loud, where my son was like, hang on, what are you laughing at? What's going on? I would have to
yeah,
explain. So, and yes, I'll put that book title in the notes. Don't worry. I will do that indeed. So one of my favourite parts is when he describes the game of cricket. Now, when I was a kid, I
yes.
loved watching cricket. My grandmother loved to watch the cricket. She would sit in her chair doing crochet, and I would sit next to her doing whatever I was doing, and we would watch the cricket for days at a time because, of course,
So
cricket is a game that can last for 5 days. And I used to
that's
explain that to people when I was teaching abroad, and they would just look at me. So I understand that if you don't grow up with it, cricket is a very unusual sport, and uh, let me just share some of what how Bill Bryson describes cricket. Um, let me. Okay. Uh, it is not true that the English invented cricket as a way of making all other human endeavours look interesting and lively. That was merely an unintended side effect. I don't wish to denigrate a sport that is enjoyed by millions, some of them awake and facing the right way, but it is an odd game. It is the only sport that incorporates meal breaks. It is the only sport that shares its name with an insect. It is the only sport in which spectators burn as many calories as players, more if they are moderately restless. It is the only competitive activity of any type, other than perhaps baking, in which you can dress in white from head to toe and be as clean at the end of the day as you were at the beginning. And he goes on to describe cricket
yeah.
in similar ways, and just made me laugh and laugh because it is a crazy sport, and I thought
I
that was a
think
good
it's
description.
yeah. I love cricket as well, and I think it's because you grow up with it. But it's what people probably find it hard to understand is it fits in well with Australian culture because there's a lot of often on a weekend there's a lot of barbecues going on, drinking, socialising when you're watching it on the TV, and when you're at the game, the cameras will pan around. There's a lot of people doing
You can
some
do
people
whatever you
come
like
dressed
while you're
up.
watching cricket. You just got to try and pay a bit of
You can do
attention
whatever
so
you
you don't
like.
miss
So
the key moments.
and to be fair, cricket's realised that 5 day games are not for everyone, and they have got shorter versions for. In fact, they've got some. They've got a 3 hour version, which I think
That's
at
too
some
quick for
stage they
cricket,
probably.
I think.
Yeah, it is, but
I see why they did it
that's
though.
the one all the kids are. That's the one all the kids like to go to over the summer break, and that's the one I think they target to get into the Olympics one day, and to maybe get Americans and Chinese playing and things like that. So yes, but I'm a bit more of a purist, and yeah, you can go, you leave it on the TV for the 5 days, and you do a lot of stuff. You do your house cleaning, and you
Mm.
hear a noise, and you come back, oh, someone's got out,
Yeah,
and
and they'll replay it and
and
discuss it
so
endlessly, so it doesn't matter if you miss the
and
exact
they do,
moment.
and it's not necessarily just Australian. I mean, New Zealanders and I don't know how Indian
India.
people love their cricket much more than probably Australians do, but
Mm.
they probably have a different way of approaching these
Mm.
things as well. So, and the
Yeah,
English
actually,
as
that's
well.
true.
So
That would be interesting to
it's
discuss. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I must ask some
but
Indian friends
yeah,
about
it's
that.
definitely part of Australian culture. I think more so than being a sport that people must watch and must watch every single piece of action. It's kind of like
It's a
part
lifestyle.
of the culture. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They play cricket in the oval directly opposite my house, so I get to, and I just kind of stick my head out now and again. I never know who wins, but it's kind of exciting to see. I
And,
always hear when someone gets out, so yeah. Do you
and
have
yeah,
another
I
favorite
mean,
spot in the book,
yeah, well,
Justin?
I was just going to say the other thing on sport that he made a comment on was Australian rules football. And he just described it as a very popular form of loosely contained mayhem called Australian rules football. And I
That's
think,
very accurate.
yeah, and I'm not a huge follower of Australian rules, but that's partly because if you grow up in a certain part of the country, you're more likely to follow it, like Victoria or South Australia, WA.
Yeah.
Uh, but it was interesting. I did see a lot of stuff when COVID was on, and all of a sudden there was Australian rules football was being played in Australia, and people around the world could watch it because they had nothing else to watch. There was no soccer. There
Oh, I
was,
didn't see that. Interesting.
and so there was a lot of interesting comments from people going, "Wait, what the hell is this?" And yeah,
I bet.
yeah. So it is a
Ah.
very I kind of understand the rules, but it's very hard to explain to people as well.
Yeah, you have to grow up with it, I think. Put it
Yeah,
this way, I'm kind of glad my son chose soccer instead of Aussie rules. I
rules. Yeah,
feel like he's less likely to come off the pitch and need to go to hospital
yeah,
from soccer. So, but they at the oval opposite my house in the winter they play Aussie rules.
yeah,
Unfortunately, not soccer. That
yeah,
would be so convenient, but so we do get to witness enough of it. Um, my other favourite part, and it was relevant, oh, it might be relevant to your recent trip too, Justin,
yeah.
was the part about flies. So he mentions flies a lot,
Oh yeah.
and flies in Australia are really annoying. Sometimes you forget, especially because it's just been winter. But of course, now it's summer's on its way. And last week, the one before, whenever we were up in Cervantes, um, that's just a bit further north, and it was a warm weekend. We were out in the deserty kind of bits, and oh, the flies are really awful. And I'm used to it, but my son, I think, had not really had a very bad fly experience in his life because he's, I don't know, young. And so he thought it was the worst thing in the world. But let me just read a little bit about what Bill says. Flies are, of course, always irksome, but the Australian variety distinguish themselves by their very particular persistence. If an Australian fly wants to be up your nose or in your ear, there is no discouraging him. Flick at him as you will, and each time he will jump out of range and come straight back. It is simply not possible to deter him. And he goes on. And I thought it's actually very, very true.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. I tend to. I don't think we get flies here, but I think when I went out back recently, it got to that plague proportion where you could see like 1,000 flies sitting on the back of someone, and I knew they were all over me, and I knew they'd be yeah, buzzing around your nose and your ears, and yeah, it's just
Yeah, it's unpleasant. But you kind of get
it's
used to it. Or
unpleasant.
you're smart enough to have a fly
Yeah,
net thing, and then you're
yeah,
okay.
it's better than mosquitoes. So
Yes, at
yeah,
least the flies are doing you no harm.
yeah.
I hope. They're not going to, yeah.
Um,
Mosquitoes are worse. Go on.
yeah. Oh, I was going to say the other thing that I found interesting in the book, and he doesn't really cover it a lot, but he did towards the end of it was the distances of how things are. Like he does mention like how far, like you mentioned, Perth is from anywhere, and even by his own admissions, he stopped in the town of Maxville, owing to the interesting discovery that Brisbane is not 3 or 4 hours north of Sydney,
Oh, that was
and he
hilarious. Whoops.
and he wouldn't have had Google Maps back then or anything
No.
like that to do the research. But I still think it's a common theme these days. And I think even in New Zealand's not anywhere near as big as Australia, but they have a big problem with people underestimating distances as well. And
Yeah.
so, and their roads are not as, their roads are more windier. So,
Mm.
but yeah, I think, I did like 3,000 kilometers on my recent trip, which I think if we work it out is about over 2,000 miles for people
Mm.
who know
And it was
miles.
about a 10
And,
day trip, was it?
and it took 10, 11 days,
Uh,
and I was tired driving that, and I didn't even leave the state. So,
yeah, yeah, that's right.
so
Exactly. Yeah,
yeah, some
distances
of the
are
states in
crazy
Australia are
vast
as
here.
big as yeah. So um, there, I mean, it's not like, I mean, you go from one side of Europe to the other, and that would be very similar distances. And same with the USA. You go from LA to New York, you're talking about a similar distances as Perth to Sydney. So,
But
but
there's
people
stuff in
just tend not
between.
to realise. Yeah, it's the
Here, there's
lack of
just
stuff in
nothing.
between that makes it.
Yeah, yeah, which makes
So,
it special, but also, yeah, you've got
yes,
to be prepared if you're going to do any serious driving here. You have to
no, that's
plan
right.
things and not assume that it's going to take you three
Yes,
hours to get from
definitely.
Sydney to Brisbane.
Yeah,
So, yeah, that is unfortunate indeed. All right. Well, I see our time is kind of up, so we probably need to wind
yeah.
up. And thank you, Justin, because I enjoyed
No,
chatting about Down Under, and I kind of think I need to put it on my roster to reread in another decade or so because it was such an enjoyable
oh,
book to reread.
you probably should have a whole list of travel ideas from the book as well, just in case you can't leave the country
Well, that's
for a
true,
while.
actually. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I was just looking in my notes, and I had the bit about make hay while the sun shines,
Shines, yeah.
because there's the town of Hay, and which I'd looked out for because Catherine had mentioned it when we discussed this book last time. When we previewed it, and I've never been to the town of Hay, so there you go. There's something. But yeah, there's lots of
I did
places
stop
that.
there for an hour. So
Was that enough?
yeah,
I haven't seen much of New South Wales. I've seen much more of Victoria or Queensland, but as far as New South Wales goes, not much. So
yeah.
there's plenty
I
to
called in hoping
explore.
for something to see, and there wasn't. The rivers. I was looking at all the rivers because the rivers are all got a lot of water in them now compared to last time, but it didn't feel. You could still see how much lower they were compared to
Right.
historical. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, it's been an interesting
mm,
time to be seeing more of Australia. I've certainly seen more of Western Australia than I would in the average year. So, but at least we've been able to,
yes.
so we're very lucky. Anyway, our next book for next month-ish is Laura Waters'
Same
Bewildered.
cover.
Oh, we have the yes. I don't think it's been around long enough to have two editions yet.
No.
So I think was it released early this year? Might have been late last year. I've lost track, but in any case, it is um, a lovely, inspiring story. And we are actually going to get Laura on to chat about it as well, which is going to make it extra interesting, I think. I've had Laura on the podcast before, some many months back, but it'll be interesting. I've got a few questions I want to ask her arising from this, and I'm looking forward to rereading it because I remember feeling quite
Yes. Well, I
uplifted by
haven't
the
read
end
it
of it.
yet, so I am. I saw it on one of our lists earlier in the year, and I've actually fallen in love with New Zealand, so I'm looking forward to it.
Perfect. Excellent. Oh, there's
Yes.
lots of bits of New Zealand. It's you'll enjoy it. Awesome. So that'll be, in fact, because it's December soon,
Mm.
like crazy soon. I actually decided we'll talk about this in early January, which gives us plenty of time to read it, and everyone else to grab a copy and read it. Because otherwise we'll be trying to squeeze it in like in the week or two before
Yeah.
Christmas, and that's just a crazy time of year in general. So I thought we'll just give ourselves a bit of leeway there. So we'll see you then. So thank you, Justin.
And if people want to catch up on other books, they can catch up. There's plenty of good books from this year.
Absolutely. I have to update the blog post about it. I'll pop that up in the group again soon so that everyone can see. So, yeah. Thanks again, Justin. It was lovely to chat with you,
No worries.
and we'll speak to you soon.